Back in April, Nintendo dropped a ton of information about the Switch 2, and one of the announcements that stood out to me was that Super Mario Party Jamboree is getting a pretty big update, and ever since that announcement, this has gotten completely swept under the rug. Seriously, I've seen just about nobody talking about Jamboree TV, and yet, from everything I've seen from this update, it's gotten me genuinely hyped to go back and re-experience this game. So now that we've gotten quite a bit of information from both the initial trailer and the overview trailer for Jamboree TV, I wanted to talk about how sick I actually think this update is going to be, and also, despite nobody talking about it, why I think this game is going to be perfect for the Nintendo Switch 2. So without further ado, I have a few reasons to go over, so let's start with reason number 1. Now, the first reason I'm super excited for this update is because it's not a new game. Now, that might sound really stupid initially, but let me explain. Mario Party on the Switch always followed a kind of weird pattern. They announce a game, it would look really cool, and then after a few days or even hours of playing it, it would become stale. There was always something missing, whether it being the lack of boards, forcing you to play with one Joy-Con, or just not really shaking up the series enough for it to feel like a new experience. On top of that, instead of updating the games with stuff like more boards and characters to make it feel less stale, they would just release a new Mario Party every 3 years. I ended up playing all 3 Mario Party games on the Switch, and I must admit that unlike the other 2 games that felt stale pretty quickly, Jamboree was actually a pretty good game. I was definitely skeptical at first, especially with how it adopted the Super Mario Party branding in the title, but it actually had the content to back it up. There was a good amount of boards and characters, optional motion controls this time, and some really fun minigames. To be honest, I had a blast with this game, and this was easily my most played Switch game of 2024. So really, seeing more content get added to a game that I already like a lot, instead of having to wait 3 more years for a brand new one, is kind of perfect. I'm completely happy to still be able to enjoy this game 9 months out from launch. Unfortunately, this game came out around the same time as when my Switch decided to adopt a cool new feature, casually overheating and shutting down in the middle of normal gameplay. So yeah, at this point, the wait for the Switch 2 was killing me, and also literally killing my Switch. Which brings me to my next reason for why I'm excited for this game. My second reason is simply the fact that I think this is the perfect way to do a port on the Switch 2. With the Switch, Nintendo's lineup for each year was often supplemented with ports of Wii U games. This kind of made sense because on top of the Wii U underperforming, it was also pretty cool to have games like Mario Kart 8 and Super Mario 3D World on a portable device. However, as we learned more and more about the Switch 2, one of my main concerns was that Nintendo was going to just recycle this strategy. And to be honest, I don't want to be paying $60 to play Switch games I already own. I want new games to feel like new experiences, especially since the portable device novelty doesn't really exist anymore since the Switch 2 is, well, another Switch. Thankfully though, because the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, I think Nintendo has adopted a way better strategy for these re-released games. If a game has slightly better graphics or better frame rates, it seems like Nintendo plans to offer updates to those games for free. And yeah, this makes a ton of sense. Like, we don't need new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe to play the same game with more frames per second. However, for games that have been highly enhanced, like 4K outputs or major DLCs specifically for the Switch 2, Nintendo's offering both a Switch 2 version of that game, or if you already own the game, you can simply just pay a smaller price to upgrade it. Now honestly, this isn't entirely perfect, especially with the Switch 2 editions themselves. Like, it's always going to be cheaper to buy a game on sale or use a game voucher and then pay the cost to upgrade. However, it is very nice not to have to buy an entirely new game if you already own the Switch version. I think $10 to $20 is completely fair for a substantial upgrade, especially with DLC. And honestly, I probably would have just bought the DLC for this game even if it wasn't for the Switch 2. So being able to enjoy my favorite Switch game of 2024 as a Switch 2 experience is pretty exciting. And speaking of this sort of Switch 2 experience, let's move on and talk about how they've actually fleshed out this game to make it feel more modern. Even before the Switch 2 was announced, I was always curious as to how its features would be utilized, specifically mouse support. I kind of felt like this would be a gimmick that didn't really see the light of day all that much, a lot like HD Rumble. However, I saw the potential, and Mario Party was actually one of the first games I thought of when we initially even heard about this feature. Just looking at past games, I actually think motion controls, particularly in the Mario Party series, are pretty fun. I thought Mario Party 8 was great, and I think people's biggest gripe was probably more more so the inconsistency of motion controls rather than the actual gimmick. However, this new mouse feature does a great job spicing up regular gameplay, and it offers the precision of, well, a mouse, which is definitely more accurate than flailing a Wii remote around. So when the Super Mario Party Jamboree TV announcement specifically mentioned that it would be integrating the Switch 2's main features, I was kind of stoked to see this. Apparently there are 20 brand new minigames, all focused around the Switch 2 and its new gimmicks. On top of us having already seen similar stuff with games like Mario Party 8 and its motion controls, I also just think mouse functionality works so great with a minigame collection specifically. When the Switch 2 launched, I actually played a decent amount of the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, and honestly, a lot of the minigames and demos in that game were pretty fun. There wasn't a ton of depth to any of these games, but it did make me excited for the features like mouse support. There were even some minigames that genuinely made me wish they were part of a multiplayer experience like Mario Party. Like, the fact that all these new minigames can be played with other people in a competitive setting is sick. And to be honest, even though this is just an update for an already existing game, this feels like the first game that will genuinely play like a Switch 2 experience. Like, sorry Welcome Tour, but as fun as it was sometimes, even calling that a game is more than generous. Another feature I haven't really seen talked about yet is the Switch 2's built-in microphone. A lot of the minigames will be centered around the mic, and this isn't actually new to Mario Party at all. Mario Party 6 and 7 on the GameCube actually came with the microphone accessory for certain minigames. Mario Party DS utilized that console's built-in mic. Since the Switch 2's microphone is also built in, this is kind of a no-brainer. It might not seem like a feature that's particularly interesting, but I've actually had fun with this kind of thing in the past. Like, does anyone remember the mic minigame from Mario Party DS where you had to try and impersonate Mario characters by echoing their sound bites? That was so fun, and like, it's Mario Party. I'm here to have fun. 20 minigames might not feel like a huge upgrade. However, considering every minigame is going to have a new spin on a different Switch 2 gimmick, these minigames will probably stand out as some of the most fun and interesting experiences in this game. And I say that as someone who already loves the minigames in Mario Party Jamboree. But the minigames alone are not the sole update we're getting here. So for this next reason, let's talk about some additional updates that also look pretty exciting. First up, you can now have your face displayed on a tiny circle using the Switch 2's camera.
Yeah, let's go! Woo!
Seriously though, while there aren't any new boards, there actually are 2 new versions of Mario Party in this update. The first is Frenzy Rules. This is essentially a speedrunner's version of Mario Party. It's 5 turns, which means dual minigames have been turned on, and you're given 50 coins and double dice and a star at the beginning. Honestly, it may sound stupid, but I genuinely think this is a great update. Usually when I'm playing games with my friends, Mario Party is one that kind of always feels like more of a commitment. So being able to just casually play through a whole game of Mario Party is kind of sick. Hell, maybe my Switch would have let me play through one of these without overheating if this was available at launch. There's also Tag Team now, which actually is recycled from past Mario Party games. If you couldn't tell, this is a 2v2 version of Mario Party. However, it's been modernized a bit for Jamboree. There's a brand new item called the Together Dice, which lets your teammate warp to you, and you can actually use it to collect 2 stars at once. This is essentially just like having an ally in a normal game. However, the fact that it incorporates your teammate is so cool. I'll definitely be checking out this mode when the game comes out. And finally, there are 2 more modes, one of which is Bowser Party. This one has a heavy emphasis on the Switch 2's camera.
Yeah, love this, woo!
Now, I've been memeing on this camera quite a bit. However, I must admit, this honestly does look pretty fun. The minigames basically can track your movements. When I played through all the minigames in Welcome Tour, there was actually one that used the camera that can track your face's movement, and it works pretty well. I didn't really notice it being finicky, and I'm super curious to see how fun this will be in Mario Party. The other mode that's included is the Carnival Coaster, which seems to heavily revolve around the Switch 2's mouse controls. It seems to be cooperative, and you're riding in this coaster led by a talking flower from Super Mario Bros. Wonder. You're actually using the mouse to shoot down enemies. There's also minigames that can apparently add more time to the clock, depending on how you perform. I'm assuming these minigames will either be entirely based on mouse support, or at least the ones with mouse support are more likely to appear. But yeah, I don't know how much time I'll actually sink into these specific modes, like Jamboree already has a ton of content at launch, but I'll definitely give each of them a shot when they come out. And one more thing, the thing about Jamboree TV that gets me so excited is the amount of effort they're putting into Mario Party actually here. It felt for like a decade that Nintendo didn't really know what Mario Party was. Starting with Mario Party 9, they put the players in the carts, and then they continued that in Mario Party 10, and that was controversial, and that was a whole nother thing. And then we had the return to form with Super Mario Party, which was also kind of controversial because the boards were a lot smaller. The mini games were, least to say, not very fun. They kind of figured out what they were doing with Mario Party Superstars, but it was just copying the old game's homework. And specifically with Jamboree, it felt like for the first time in forever that they knew what they were doing with Mario Party and actually put out a game with good boards, good mini games, and good side modes, which shouldn't be a lot to ask for, but considering the games we got in the past 10 years, it was really impressive. So seeing Jamboree TV come out, add a bunch of new content, and lead Mario Party in a new direction is specifically for me very exciting. I'm very excited for the next Mario Party in the series. Like I said at the beginning, I was skeptical of Jamboree when it came out. I didn't know how good it was gonna be, but when it really comes down to it, I think they finally figured out what Mario Party is specifically in the new era, and I think Jamboree TV is their victory lap on an already amazing game. But let me know what games you would like to see get this Switch 2 version treatment down in the comments below. Are you going to pick up Jamboree TV? Personally, I definitely am. I think it's a great deal, but if you don't already own Jamboree itself, there really is no reason to buy the Switch 2 version instead of just buying the game and then the DLC. With that out of the way, if you're craving some more Mario Party videos, go check out this video right here ranking every single Mario Party minigame in the series. It's a long one, but it's a very good video, and I think you'll enjoy it if you enjoy Mario Party. All right, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.